For 2 whole decades, my job was making lifeless things look like they were full of life. But then I uncovered something chilling. Turns out, my wife had a hidden talent of her own. She was great at making living folks vanish without a trace. Eventually, it became clear I was next on her list to disappear for good. Name's Ethan Hawkins. I'm 43 years old, and I've been running my own emergency locksmith service just outside Pittsburgh for over a dozen years. When someone's pipes burst in the middle of the night or they're standing out in a blizzard locked out of their house, I'm the guy they call. I built my business on dependability, showing up no matter what, even when others flake out. Funny, isn't it? I spent my days fixing other people's messes, while my own marriage was quietly falling apart behind closed doors. The night everything started to unravel didn't come with warning bells. It began like any other. I was knee-deep in a basement on Oak Street that had flooded bad when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Alicia. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Pretty routine. Nothing that would raise eyebrows, except this was the third time that week she'd said that, and it was only Thursday. By the time I wrapped things up and got back home, it was just past midnight. The house was dark, except for the soft glow of the porch light. I parked the van and noticed her car still wasn't in the driveway. That uneasy twist in my stomach made itself known again as I stepped inside. The living room looked off. Nothing was messy, but something had definitely been moved around. One of the throw pillows on the couch was missing. Her favorite coffee mug, the one she always left out, was nowhere to be seen. Little things most folks wouldn't even notice. But when you spend your days analyzing busted locks and security systems that VE been messed with, you develop a sharp eye for anything out of place. I headed upstairs toward our bedroom. The whole house had a weird kind of emptiness to it, like it was holding its breath. In the bedroom, her jewelry box was shut and latched tight. That was strange. Alicia hardly ever bothered to close it, unless she didn't want me seeing something. Just then, I heard her car pull into the driveway. I scrambled to change into pajamas and slid under the covers, pretending to be asleep. The front door opened with the kind of hush that comes from practice. Her heels tapped quietly across the wood floors, too precise, like she was trying too hard not to make a sound. Then she appeared in the bedroom doorway, her figure outlined by the light from the hall. She stood there, not moving, just watching me like she was checking if I was really asleep. Then, in a voice so soft I almost missed it, she said something that chilled me to the bone. Tomorrow changes everything, Ethan. I'm sorry it has to be this way. She thought I was out cold. She had no idea I caught every single word. When I woke up the next morning, she was already gone. Just a note left behind on the kitchen counter. Gone to visit Mom for a few days. We'll talk when I get back. But something didn't sit right. She'd packed more than she ever did for a short trip, but left behind the little things she never traveled without. That's when I realized this wasn't just a visit to her mother's place. Something else was going on, and I needed to find out what she was really up to during all those late-night work shifts. 3 days went by, and not a peep from Alicia. No calls. No texts. Nothing. Her mom lived out in Tucson, and I'd called her 3 times. First time, she said Alicia hadn't shown up yet, but was expected. The second time, her voice sounded puzzled. Ethan, I thought Alicia was staying with you. She called yesterday and said she couldn't make it because of work. Work? Yeah, right? I was sitting in my van outside a customer's house when my phone buzzed. An Instagram message popped up from someone with no profile picture, just the default gray outline. The name said David Novak, but something about it seemed fake, like a made-up identity. The message read, "You deserve to know the truth about your wife. Hilton City Center. Room 424. Tonight. 9:15 p.m. Bring a camera." My hands started to tremble. Every instinct I had screamed at me to delete it, block the sender, pretend it never happened. But that hollow feeling in my chest, the one that had been growing for months, kept nagging at me. I couldn't let it go. I knocked out the rest of my service calls early and headed home. Without Alicia around, the house felt more like a crypt. I sat at the kitchen table, just staring at that message until the words blurred into nonsense. Part of me was hoping this was some messed up prank or a scam, anything but the truth I feared. At 8:45, I grabbed my phone, hopped in the van, and drove downtown. The Hilton on Lincoln Avenue was all sleek glass and steel, a place for traveling executives, or for married folks looking to keep secrets. I parked across the street and waited in the shadows. Right at 9:15 o'clock, I walked into the lobby like I belonged there. Took the elevator up to the 4th floor. Felt like it took forever. Room 424 was all the way at the end of the hallway. and I could hear voices coming from inside. Laughter. Her laughter. Peeking through a narrow slit between the curtains, I saw them. Alicia was sitting on the bed, laughing in the red dress she swore didn't fit anymore, the one she wore for our anniversary. A guy with dark hair was standing near the table, pouring 2 glasses of wine. He looked younger than me, maybe mid-30s. He had the kind of build that comes from time spent in the gym, not lifting toolboxes. They were talking close, touching, acting like they were more than familiar. The way she looked at him, it crushed me. That's how she used to look at me, back when we were still in love, before all of this. I didn't take any photos. Didn't knock. Didn't confront them. I just stood there, watching from the hallway for 15 long minutes, committing every painful detail to memory, details I wish I could erase forever. The way she tilted her head back when she laughed stuck with me. They were so at ease, like this wasn't their first time sneaking around. And when I noticed her wedding ring resting on the nightstand, my stomach turned. I got home and just sat in my truck for what must have been an hour. The house looked unfamiliar, almost like it didn't belong to me anymore. Walking inside felt like stepping into someone else's life. The rooms were full of memories that now stung like a burn. Our life together suddenly felt like a lie. I powered up my laptop and made a brand new email account. I sent the hotel name, room number, time, and a short note describing exactly what I'd seen. I needed something saved proof, a trail, something to fall back on in case things went sideways. One thing was for sure. The marriage I thought I was holding together had already come undone. She just hadn't had the guts to say it out loud. Alicia rolled back in on a Friday evening, pulling into the driveway like she hadn't missed a beat. I watched her through the kitchen window as she stayed in her car a while, fiddling with her phone, checking herself out in the mirror like she needed to put on a face for someone. But she didn't use her key. She knocked. That alone told me everything. When I opened the door, I scanned her face. She had that forced smile, the kind people wear when they're hoping you won't ask too many questions. "Hi, honey," she said, stepping inside like we were still a normal couple. "Miss me? How is your mother?" I asked, shutting the door behind her. "Oh, you know how she is. Still grumbling about her neighbor's tree," she replied, dropping her purse on the side table and heading toward the stairs. "I need a shower. We'll catch up after." But I'd already done the catching up while she was gone. I had called her credit card company, pretending to verify a few purchases. The Hilton, a pricey restaurant I knew she'd never take me to. Charges from a lingerie store I'd never heard her mention before. "Alicia," I said, just as she reached the stairs. She turned slowly, hand resting on the railing. "Yeah, we need to talk. Now." Her jaw flexed a little. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted from the drive." "No, it can't." We sat across from each other at the kitchen table like two strangers finalizing a contract. I slid a printout across the table, a copy of her recent credit card statement. "Care to explain these?" I asked. She glanced at it, barely flinching. "I treated myself while I was at my mom's. Is that some sort of crime now?" I tapped the paper. "The Hilton is in Tucson?" "Yes. We went for drinks. Mom wanted to check out the new lobby." Her answers were too smooth, too quick. She'd practiced this. Every word sounded like it was read off a script. I leaned back, silent for a second. Then I said quietly, "I saw you, Alicia. Room 424. With him." The blood drained from her face. For a second, she didn't say a word. "You followed me?" she finally whispered. Someone pointed me in the right direction. She stood up fast, her chair scraping hard against the floor. "That's just crazy. Ethan, what are you doing?" "Sit down," I said, my voice calm but solid. Same tone I used when a client tried to stiff me on a bill. And just like that, she froze, then lowered herself back down. "We'll talk when I come back from my trip," she mumbled. "I need time to think." "What trip?" "I'm going back to Tucson. When I come back, we'll figure things out." I nodded slowly. "Take all the time you need." That night, as she packed upstairs, I made a list, accounts to close, bills to switch, locks to change. She was pretending this was temporary, but I knew what it really was. The next morning, she left without saying goodbye. I watched from my workshop as she loaded the trunk with more luggage than any short trip called for. She wasn't planning to come back. Not really. I waited about an hour after she pulled away. Then I got started. First, the bank. I walked into the same branch where we'd opened our joint checking account 3 years back. I was holding a folder with all our account info and wearing my best clean work shirt. "I need to close our joint account," I told the manager, handing over the paperwork. "Will Mrs. Hawkins be signing too?" she asked, glancing at the forms. She's away on business. But I'm listed here, I said, pointing at the original signature card we both signed. 25 minutes later, I left that bank with a cashier's check in hand. 17 grand. Money Alicia probably thought would be waiting for her when she got back. Next up, I called every utility company we were using: electric, gas, water, trash. I told each rep the same thing. I'm putting everything in my name. My wife's moving out. By noon, all the accounts were switched over. The house, the bills, the money, it was mine now. At 3 o'clock sharp, the locksmith showed up. Changing all the locks, I said as I greeted him. We had a break-in last week. Can't be too careful. Smart move, he nodded, hauling out his toolbox. While he worked, I looked around the house and realized it already felt different. Like the second she drove off, the air shifted. This wasn't her home anymore. And I wasn't waiting around to be the last one left in the dark. You'd be amazed how many folks wait until something awful happens before they bother changing their locks. While the locksmith worked, I went to our bedroom and started removing every last trace of Alicia. Her dresses, her heels, that perfume she only wore on nights she said she was going out with the girls. I boxed it all up. Jewelry, makeup, even her hairbrush. I packed the van full and drove across town to a storage unit I'd rented under a different name. Paid 5 months in advance, all in cash. No paper trail, no questions. When I got back and walked through the house, it felt like I was stepping into a new version of my life. The silence didn't echo sadness anymore. It felt peaceful. Even the air seemed lighter, like the walls had exhaled after holding their breath for too long. That night, I called her brother, Lucas. He and I never really got along, just polite small talk at holidays. But he still deserved the truth. Hey, Lucas. It's Ethan. Just wanted to let you know. Alicia and I are getting divorced. There was a pause. Then he said, Wait, what? She's been cheating, Lucas. For a while now. And when she gets back, she'll probably try to twist it around. Make me look like I lost it or something. I just wanted you to hear it from me first. He sounded stunned. Man, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Neither did I said. Not until recently. I told him, if she calls you crying, saying I went off the rails, please just remember this conversation. He said he would. I believed him. After that, I headed out to the workshop behind the house. Sat down with my leather-bound journal where I'd been keeping a log of everything. Dates, times, charges on our joint card, hotel bills, receipts, all of it. If this went to court, I wouldn't walk in empty-handed. But that wasn't my plan. Alicia said she needed time to think. Fine. I was going to give her all the time she wanted, and then some. And when she was ready to talk, she'd realize I wasn't around to listen anymore. 3 days after she'd taken off for Tucson, I got a call that made my blood run cold. Unknown number, local area code. I almost didn't answer. Is this Ethan Hawkins? An older woman asked, voice raspy and edged with something I couldn't place. Yes. Who's calling? My name is Helen Alvarez. I think we need to talk about your wife. That name alone made my stomach twist. I'm listening, I said cautiously. Not on the phone, she replied. Meet me at the Denny's on Maple Grove Road. In 1 hour. Every instinct in me screamed to hang up. But that feeling in my gut, the one that had been right all along, told me I needed to hear her out. Helen was already there when I arrived. 70s, maybe older. Hair the color of fresh snow and a pair of eyes that looked like they'd witnessed 100 storms. She sat in a corner booth with a cup of coffee held like it was keeping her grounded. You're younger than the others, she said as I slid into the seat across from her. The others. She pushed a manila envelope across the table. My grandson Jake works at the Hilton. He's been tracking your wife's visits. Room 424. Every time. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of hotel check-ins, Alicia's name plastered across every one. Room 424, again and again. Different men, different last names, but always the same room. She's done this before, Helen said quietly. My nephew Victor was married to her 3 years ago. She drained his accounts and disappeared. My heart felt like it stalled for a second. She was married before? To Victor? She wasn't Alicia back then, Helen continued. She was using a different name. She's gone by at least 4 identities that we know of, different social security numbers, driver's licenses, addresses. I sat there stunned, trying to process the photos, the names, the matching dates. The truth was shattering everything I thought I knew. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Her voice dropped. Because Victor passed away last year. He was deeply affected by the betrayal and lies. I swore that if I ever found another one of her victims, I'd warn him. She reached out and touched my hand. Ethan, you're not dealing with a woman who made a mistake. You're married to a professional manipulator. A scammer. If you don't walk away now, she'll ruin you, just like she did Victor. I left the diner feeling like I was walking underwater, holding that folder like it was my own indictment for being blind. How had I missed it? The perfect excuses. Her obsession with handling all the bills and mail. How she never left anything of hers around that she couldn't scoop up in a heartbeat. Back home, I went straight to the bedroom and really started looking, not just glancing through drawers searching. Behind her jewelry box, I found a small key taped to the back. It unlocked a box stashed behind winter coats in her closet. Inside, 3 passports, all with her face, none with her name, dozens of credit cards, bank documents linked to accounts I never knew existed, some with balances that dwarfed what we had in our joint checking. It hit me like a punch to the ribs. The woman I married didn't exist. Alicia was just a part she'd been playing. And the real woman? I didn't know who she was. But I knew enough now to understand this whole marriage had been one long, careful lie. And she wasn't just stepping out on me. She'd built her entire life on walking away clean. When she strolled back in, probably thinking the game was still on and I'd be playing my part, she was about to learn that Ethan Hawkins had vanished for good. That version of me, the trusting, clueless guy, was gone. That night, I locked myself away in my workshop, surrounded by the tools I used to fix things. But this time I wasn't putting something back together. I was taking apart something that never should have existed to begin with. All the items from the lockbox were laid out across my workbench like pieces of evidence in a courtroom. Honestly, that's exactly what they were. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a crime scene. I hadn't just lost time. I'd been swindled out of 3 full years of my life. And by the time daylight hit, I had a plan. First step? I got on the phone with Daniel Reyes, a private investigator I'd done mechanical work for in the past. Daniel was a former police officer with a cynical view of the world, which was exactly the kind of mindset I needed at that moment. Daniel, I said, I've got a situation. My wife isn't who she pretended to be. Affair? He asked. No, I told him. Something worse. I think I've been part of an elaborate scam, and I doubt I'm her only target. I met up with Daniel at his office downtown and laid out the whole mess. I showed him the hotel bills Helen had uncovered, the aliases, the mysterious accounts. He listened without jumping in, scribbling a few notes now and then. Good grief, Ethan, he finally said. We're talking marriage fraud, stolen identities, financial deception. This woman's looking at serious jail time. I'm not looking to put her behind bars, I told him. I just want her out of my life for good. He raised an eyebrow. What exactly do you have in mind? He asked. I want Alicia Hawkins to feel the weight of what she cost. We spent the next couple of hours sketching out the plan. Daniel was going to reach out to some of his old contacts, folks who could help shut down her phony bank accounts, flag her fake names in the system. Nothing that would have her in cuffs the next day, but just enough to make everything start falling apart for her. While he did that, I was preparing what I called the final blow. That same afternoon, I went back to the bank where we'd once opened a joint account, the same one I'd already drained, but I wasn't done yet. I walked up to the branch manager and said calmly, I'd like to report suspicious activity tied to my account. Then I told him what I'd learned, that my wife had been using forged documents. I handed over photocopies of the passports, credit cards, and all the supporting material Daniel had helped me gather. The manager's expression turned pale. Mr. Hawkins, he said quietly, this is extremely serious. We'll need to notify law enforcement. I nodded. I get that. But first, I need to make sure she's blocked from accessing any other accounts tied to her names. Can you place a system-wide alert on her social security number? I asked. Within an hour, every bank across the network would have eyes on any attempt by Alicia Hawkins, or Isabel Torres, or whatever name she was using to access funds. But the real trump card was waiting back at the house. That morning, I put together a file so damning it made Helen's little manila folder look like a post-it note. Inside it, I placed copies of everything, plus the new intel Daniel had dug up. Hotel stays in different cities. DMV documents showing multiple driver's licenses. Even a marriage certificate out of Orlando, proving she was married to another man at the same time she was engaged to me. I bundled all of it into a folder labeled for Alicia and left it dead center on the kitchen table. Then I swapped out the locks one last time, just to make sure she couldn't get in. By the time Alicia came home from wherever she'd been, the world she thought she controlled was going to be gone. The house? Off limits. The bank accounts? locked down. And waiting for her was a neat little package full of paperwork that could land her in federal court. But I wasn't planning on her sticking around long enough for that to happen. See, pros like her don't hang around when the heat's on. The moment the spotlight hits them, they scatter like bugs. Sunday came and went without a sign of her. Then Monday morning, I got the call that made everything click into place. Mr. Hawkins, this is Detective Grace Lee with Pittsburgh PD. We need to talk about your wife. My heart sank into my shoes. Is she okay? I asked. She's fine, the detective replied, but we do need to speak with you in person. An hour later, I was sitting in a dim interview room that smelled like burnt coffee and stale regret. Across the table, Detective Lee slid a photo toward me. Do you recognize this woman? She asked. It was Alicia, but in the picture, she was blonde and laughing beside a man I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was taken 5 months earlier. That's my wife, I said slowly. But I've never seen her with that hair color. And I don't know who that guy is. Detective Lee opened a thick file folder. Mr. Hawkins, she said, your wife is being investigated for insurance fraud. She told me the photo was taken in Fort Lauderdale, where Alicia filed a claim after a house fire supposedly wiped out all her belongings. The man in the picture? Matthew Sullivan, listed as her husband on the insurance policy. My hands went cold. But we've been married for 3 years, I said. According to their records, Alicia Hawkins legally married Matthew Sullivan in Fort Lauderdale about 19 months ago, which meant her marriage to me wasn't just a lie, it was illegal. She was married to both of us. At the very least, both of you, Lee replied. We've got leads on 2 more possible marriages. Mr. Hawkins, your wife isn't just playing people. She's running a complex scheme involving staged accidents, fake names, phony insurance claims. We estimate the total theft to be around $450,000. Detective Lee leaned in a little closer, her expression more serious than ever. The reason we brought you in, Mr. Hawkins, is because we found something deeply troubling. There's solid evidence suggesting your wife had plans to set fire to your home for the insurance payout. She slid a paper across the table. It was a life insurance policy with my name on it that I'd never even heard of, let alone signed. Taken out 7 months earlier. The beneficiary? Alicia Hawkins. The amount, $215,000. My signature was forged clear as day. I stared at it, barely able to whisper. Before I could even wrap my head around that, she added, and it gets worse. We found text messages between her and someone we believe was helping her, discussing how to make your death look like an unfortunate accident. She wasn't only after my money, there was something much worse in her intentions. I sank back in the cold chair, everything spinning. The woman I'd shared my life with had been hiding something terrifying all along. Do you know where she is now? I asked, my voice shaky. We're not sure, Lee said. She missed a meeting with her associate yesterday. Her phone's gone dark, and there's been no credit card activity. We think she realized we were closing in. She watched me carefully. Is there any chance you know where she might have gone? I thought of the house with the new locks, the account balance is sitting at 0, and that folder I left right in her path like a landmine. She probably tried to come home and found the door slammed shut on everything she thought she controlled. No, I said at last. I don't have a clue where she is. And technically, that wasn't a lie. I didn't know where she was, but I was sure she was running. And this time, she wouldn't be back. For the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. Detective Lee, there's something else, I said. I found a stash in my house, documents, passports, bank information. It might help your case. As I laid out everything I'd uncovered, the lockbox, the fake identities, the hidden money, her eyes widened. She scribbled furiously into her notes. Mr. Hawkins, she said, you might have just given us the key to building a federal case. She's been running this operation across multiple states for years. When I stepped out of that police station, I felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Alicia wasn't just gone, she was finished. Her faces, her names, her little empire of lies, it was all unraveling. Her accounts were frozen, her aliases exposed. She had tried to destroy me, but ended up blowing up her own world instead. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my workshop with a busted lock in one hand when my phone rang. It was Daniel Reyes. Ethan, he said, thought you'd want the update. They got her. I put the lock down slowly. Where? I asked. Guadalajara Airport, he said. She was trying to board a flight to Colombia using another fake passport. She had escape plans tucked all over South America. What now? I asked. She's facing federal charges, Daniel replied. Insurance fraud, mail fraud, bigamy, and conspiracy to commit murder. Prosecutors are talking 22 years minimum, possibly life. No chance of parole. You'd think I'd feel victorious, relieved, something. But honestly, I just felt drained. There's more, Daniel said. Remember Matthew Sullivan? The guy from Fort Lauderdale she married. Yeah, he wants to talk. Says it's important. 2 days later, Matthew called. His voice was flat, worn out, like mine had been not too long ago. Ethan, he said, this might sound strange, but I think we should meet. Why? I asked. Because like it or not, we're brothers now. Not by blood, but by disaster. And I think there's stuff we need to tell each other. We met up at a little diner halfway between Pittsburgh and Fort Lauderdale. When Matthew walked in, he looked like a man who'd been through the same war I had. Mid-30s, same haunted look in his eyes. We sat down like two survivors of the same wreckage. He didn't waste time. She told me you died, he said. Said it was a car accident. Tragic. She was still grieving. She told me she'd never been married, he added with a bitter chuckle. She's good. I'll give her that. For 19 months, I thought I hit the jackpot. She made me feel like the luckiest man alive. We went over our timelines, each of us filling in the gaps the other didn't know. The blueprint was always the same, sweeping like a dream, get married fast, slowly cut off the victim support system, then vanish with whatever she could grab. She had a life insurance policy on me too, Matthew said. $320,000. I let out a slow breath. Guess the price of murder went up. I hesitated. Did she ever try? To kill me, he said, looking me in the eye. Yeah, house fire. I barely got out. Investigators suspected arson, but couldn't prove it. That's when things started to feel off. We sat quietly for a long stretch, both of us just sitting with the weight of it all. You know the messed up part? Matthew finally said. There's still a piece of me that misses her. Even now, knowing what she is. Because for a while, it felt so real. I nodded. I knew exactly what he meant. That wasn't love, I said quietly. That was bait. Matthew gave a sad smile. Yeah, that was bait. We shook hands in the parking lot, strangers bonded by heartbreak and deception. As I drove back home, I found myself thinking about the road ahead. For the first time in a long while, the future wasn't something I dreaded. The house was finally mine, no strings attached. The investigation had cleared me of any wrongdoing. As for Alicia's other victims, they were pursuing their own justice now, but everything she had was tied up in legal red tape. Me? I had my life back. It wasn't the life I had originally envisioned, but for once, it was mine. That night, I wiped my phone clean of every picture of Alicia, reset all my passwords, updated my will, and sat down in my workshop with one goal in mind. I was going to rebuild the one thing I'd neglected for too long, myself. I knew it wasn't going to be quick. I'd been wrecked too thoroughly for that. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't in a rush. I had nothing but time now, and that finally felt like a gift instead of a sentence. 6 months after Alicia's arrest, I made a decision that caught everyone off guard. I sold the house, closed down the business, and quietly disappeared. Not like how she vanished, by conning and faking her way through life. I just shed the skin of Ethan Hawkins, the emergency locksmith from Pittsburgh who'd been manipulated and nearly murdered by the woman he trusted. I'd been sketching out the escape ever since that long conversation with Matthew Sullivan. We'd stayed in touch, two battle-scarred men comparing notes, helping each other get back to breathing without flinching. Matthew had moved out to Utah, changed careers, and started over. I asked him once how he did it. He told me, you can't outrun the past, but you can choose who walks out the other side of it. When the authorities finally clawed back the money from Alicia's string of scams, they divided it among the people she'd hurt. My portion wasn't massive, but it was more than enough to start fresh. Not that the cash was the point. The real reward was freedom. I used it to buy a small cabin tucked deep in the Idaho mountains, miles away from the noise, under a sky so wide it could swallow your regrets. Everything was legal. I'd changed my name through the courts, filed the paperwork, built a clean new identity. No games, no smoke. Just a new life. Ethan Hawkins had become too heavy to carry around. So now, I was Lucas Bennett. Lucas had no history of betrayal. No tangled knot of heartache. No scars left by a woman whose actions destroyed everything I knew. Lucas made furniture. He lived in a cabin with a woodshop out back. He spent his days working with his hands, shaping raw timber into tables and chairs that could outlast their owners. The simplicity of it was healing. Wood didn't lie. Grain didn't cheat. Joints either held or they didn't. I'd been Lucas for 3 months when Detective Lee called. Mr. Hawkins, sorry, Mr. Bennett. I figured you'd want to hear it from me. Alicia pleaded guilty. All counts. 25 to life. No chance at parole. I was out on the porch, watching the last rays of daylight slip behind the trees. How many victims? I asked. 16 that we could confirm. Probably more we'll never find. The judge called it one of the biggest marriage fraud operations in federal history. After we hung up, I just sat there. I waited for the closure to wash over me, for the anger, the relief, the satisfaction. But it didn't come. There was just a quiet stillness. Alicia was gone. The people she hurt were getting justice. And I had a brand new life. It should have felt like a win. But it just felt like waking up from a fever dream that had lasted far too long. The next morning, I went out to the shop and got back to work on a dining table I'd started for a family in Idaho Falls. Half up front, balance on delivery. Straightforward. Fair. No manipulation, no tricks, just honest labor for honest pay. That kind of clarity was something I hadn't experienced in years. 3 years passed, and Lucas Bennett had settled into himself. The furniture business had grown faster than I ever expected. Word spread across Idaho about the quiet guy in the mountains who built heirloom-quality pieces with his bare hands. There was a 6-month waitlist. Folks drove hours just to see my work in person. But the real win wasn't financial. It was internal. I slept through the night again. I didn't brace myself every time the phone rang. I didn't examine every conversation for hidden motives. I was learning how to trust again, starting with myself. The turning point came one Wednesday morning in November when Emily Alvarez walked into my shop. She was looking for a rocking chair for her first granddaughter. I heard you're the best, she said as she ran her fingers along a cedar chest I'd just finished. I try to be, I said. We ended up talking for over an hour about wood grains, joinery, finishes, and life in small towns. She asked smart questions and actually listened to the answers. Treated the process with care and curiosity. When she left, I realized I was already looking forward to her next visit. And she did come back, every few weeks, checking on the chair's progress. Sometimes she brought coffee. Sometimes we just sat and chatted. She was a retired school teacher, widowed for 6 years, with a house full of grown kids and a garden that grew too much squash. One afternoon, as we watched the sky shift behind the trees, she said, I'm not looking for romance. I just want a companion. Someone to share things with. That sounds just right, I told her. And it was. We started going to dinner once in a while. Community events. Quiet movies at the tiny theater in town. It was easy. No pressure. No hidden intentions. Just two people who understood what it meant to be patient with others and themselves. Then, one evening, as we were sitting on my porch watching a few deer grazing below, she asked the question I'd been waiting for. Lucas, can I ask you something personal? I felt my stomach tighten. Of course. Why did you really move out here? A man with your talent could have set up shop anywhere. Why choose the edge of nowhere? I'd rehearsed this moment in my head more times than I could count. I had a dozen vague answers lined up. But sitting there next to her, with the sky turning pink and the world holding its breath, I knew I didn't want to lie. I was married once, I said. It ended badly. I needed to get away, to start fresh. She didn't flinch. She didn't ask for details. She just nodded slowly, like she understood. And somehow, that small moment, her quiet acceptance, meant more than any courtroom sentence or apology ever could. I understand, Emily said softly. Sometimes, the only way to heal is to become someone new. I hesitated. Doesn't it bother you? That I'm not exactly who I say I am? She gave a small, knowing smile. Lucas, none of us are exactly who we appear to be. We're all just doing the best we can with what we've been through. That settled into me. She wasn't judging me. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She just understood. And the truth was, Lucas wasn't a lie. He wasn't a mask I wore to hide behind. He was who I really was underneath everything Alicia had done. Underneath the betrayal, the fear, the anger. When she tore Ethan Hawkins apart, she accidentally made space for someone stronger to step forward. As stars started showing up in the sky, it hit me. I was grateful. Not for her actions, but for what I did after. I didn't let her destroy me completely. I rebuilt. I chose peace over bitterness. I chose to move forward. She once said we'd talk when she got back from her trip. But by the time she returned, there was nothing left of the man she thought she could manipulate. I'd already erased him.